Several myths. First, that there's an awful lot of this used fuel around, that there's an awful lot of this waste, that it must be bigger than the state of Delaware. Well, the truth of the matter is, if you took all of the used fuel from all of the commercial operations in this country for nearly 50 years and stacked it end to end, it would fill one football field up to about the height of the horizontal portion of the goalpost. We know where it is. We have it all contained, unlike other waste that come from other types of energy sources. And so it is that amount that we're talking about. Another way of looking at this, if you and I as babies had decided that we would only use electricity generated by nuclear energy, by the time we're 70 years old, the amount of used fuel that we would contribute to that is 2 pounds, about the amount that would fit into a Coke can, or even a Diet Coke can. The second myth is that this used fuel is very difficult to manage. Just the opposite. Today, used nuclear fuel is stored safely and securely at sites in compliance with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission regulations. Used fuel is a solid material encased in steel alloy rods, stored in water-filled steel vaults or concrete and steel containers, efficiently managed. Myth number 3, the industry doesn't have a plan for this used fuel. Well, we do have a plan. In fact, we got 2 plans. The original plan of deep geologic disposal of used fuel at Yucca Mountain remains viable and scientifically justified, but politically bankrupt. A parallel complementary path features the development of an advanced cycle technology to employ recycling to recover vast unused energy from this fuel, reduce the waste volume, reduce the radiotoxicity, reduce the heat load. And that has slowly morphed into Plan A for the nuclear industry. And that plan is threefold. First, interim storage of fuel at volunteer sites. Probably I'm talking 2, one on the east side of the Mississippi and one on the west side. And yes, we do have volunteer communities talking to us right now. Second, research and development, demonstration, and commercial deployment of this advanced fuel cycle technology to reprocess and recycle that fuel. And then third, sometime down the way, my 6 grandchildren can come together and figure out what the final waste form really is going to look like and determine where those residual byproducts, greatly reduced, need to be stored. So what about the cost? Today's operating plants are the lowest cost large-scale electricity source in the marketplace today. I already said that, 1.76 cents a kilowatt hour. Average nuclear plant production costs have declined more than 30% over the past 10 years. This is something that we need to pause and think about, because when you talk about cost, it's not just the capital cost of building the plant, it's the total life cycle cost that should matter. Nuclear plants are not subject to volatility, and fossil fuel prices are not vulnerable to the prospect of costly mandatory controls on carbon dioxide emissions. And the same holds true for these new facilities that we're talking about in the future. It is true that they have large capital-intensive projects, but I think that as we get closer and closer to building other advanced technology types of plants like clean coal, clean gas, there's going to be sticker shock associated with that also. Companies considering building these new nuclear plants have performed economic studies that demonstrate clearly that with federally backed loan guarantees, no cost to the taxpayer, they will be competitive in the electricity market, even without carbon regulations adding to the cost of fossil plants. They simply wouldn't build them if that wasn't true. Capital cost, as I said, not the only measure. We have to think about total life cycle cost. Only 26% of nuclear production costs are fuel-related costs, and only about half of that has to do with the raw uranium that goes into the nuclear power plants. Independent analysts from financial and energy consulting firms also agree that new nuclear plants will be competitive when the first of these plants are ready for commercial operation in 2016. And of course, as I've alluded to, the competitiveness of these plants will only improve as carbon taxes are added to fossil plants. Let me finally address the manufacturing concerns by first quoting Cleveland's native son, the Cleveland mayor from 79 to 88, Senator George Voinovich. Senator Voinovich recently said, investments are already being made by companies in anticipation that we're moving forward with new nuclear power in this country. So we're going to need a nuclear component supply, and we ought to be manufacturing these component parts right now and right here in the United States. Well, Senator Voinovich, my friend, is exactly right. The industry has already spent more than $2 billion on these new nuclear plant activities, including ordering long lead time components. And these nuclear components can be and should be made right here in the United States, and in fact, right here in Ohio. Nuclear component manufacturing means jobs for Ohio. In April of this year, manufacturing leaders in reactor design, engineering, construction, and procurement came here to Cleveland to learn how to become a part of this growing dynamic market. 300 people showed up to see what the action might look like just around the corner. A couple of other data points. Babcock & Wilcox, their Barberton plant just right down the road, a major supplier of my nuclear submarine components as well as the nuclear aircraft carrier components, is now eligible for commercial nuclear manufacturing. B&W can manufacture commercial nuclear grade components and engage in safety-related construction today. A construction firm in Nebraska, Peter Kiewit, has regained its nuclear accreditation. The Holtec company has regained its nuclear accreditation. My birthplace, you heard, Chattanooga, Tennessee, is the home to a new Alstom facility manufacturing nuclear-grade steam turbines. I think you get the point. America can do this, and we will. In my own Nuclear Energy Institute, we've increased our membership by some 39 members over the past couple of years, new members who are interested in investigating the prospects of nuclear component manufacturing. Names like Lockheed Martin, like Northrop Grumman, like General Dynamics, traditional defense-related industries looking into commercial nuclear. Well, finally, let me conclude with a question that I hope some of you are asking. What can you do to help if you believe what I've said today? Well, your support and willingness to factually consider nuclear energy will be absolutely essential to the country arriving at a well-thought-out energy plan. Factually consider nuclear energy. Expressing this endorsement to your policymakers to encourage them to do this factual investigation, both state, federal, will be very, very important. But equally important will be furthering this discourse within the broader business community and the general public on the role that nuclear energy can play and must play in solving this energy crisis facing our country. I hope you'll join me in this effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to Admiral Frank Skip Bowman, President and CEO of the Nuclear Energy Institute. Now, we return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today are City Club Assistant Director of Development, Marcella Brown. Where are you, Marcella? And intern Kim Leary. Now, our first question, please.